My name is Roy Shanahan and I'm joined by Nathan Doyle as always. And Nathan, it's a busy week behind the scenes. It does be busy in January, and we're going to start with Dundalk because the question was, what Dundalk are we going to see this season? It's thrown up in the air really, isn't it?
Well, there's probably been no club busier than Dundalk in the past week or so, Roy. Before we jump in, sad news about the passing of Joe Martin, Dundalk legend,
Yes.
91 years of age. Then we also seen Brian Gartland being appointed the head of football operations at Dundalk. So that kicked us off with a busy weekend at the start of the week. Great to see Brian obviously back into a club that means so much to him so soon after his retirement. But just to come in, what was there? There was rumoured infighting, rumoured sale of the club, rumoured new investors. So, look, what sort of we know is that started this interview, information is coming off in Irish Independent interview, which was done by the chairman, Sean O'Connor. So Sean denied that the club is up for sale and said that Stat Sports, the company that he's a co-founder of, aren't going anywhere in terms of the ownership of Oriel Park. So this comes from Roy. Local reports claim that the club are being offered up to other championship clubs. I think Hull City were one of the clubs that were cited as a potential investor. But yeah, as he says in this Irish Independent interview, that open to investors coming in, that talks have taken place. That might not calm any rumour of who approached who. Are the club really for sale, or are they just looking for more of an injection of cash? And to probably add a bit of smoke to this fire, don't know if you've seen it, mate. I was reading an article by James Rogers. I think it was on the Dundalk Democrat, but he does a lot of stuff with local work in Dundalk. We would have cited James a couple of times for
plenty of times.
Probably too many times.
He's a reliable source, though, isn't he?
Extremely reliable. So he was talking about, he penned a column last week, and it was about that Dundalk were effectively for sale. So we went into his reasoning and his opinions, and that's what it is, Roy. It was James' opinions of why he feels that Dundalk are for sale. And there was a couple of questions that he brought up in a follow-up article which I read during the week, and it was is it normal for organisations who aren't for sale to seek assurances if they aren't considering partial share of power? Things like, and another way I actually enjoy that, if you see a neighbour seeking valuation, is it fair to assume that they're selling up? So a couple of questions that James has brought forward to a potential sale of Dundalk.
As we know, Nathan, listen, we know every club is up for sale. That's the way football is. If there's enough money on the table, that club is up for sale, even if they haven't put them up for sale. So if you look at Shamrock Rovers, someone wants to come in and purchase Shamrock Rovers. Do you think if it's a good offer that they're not going to take it? Yeah, of course they will. They know very well they will. So Dundalk at the moment, listen, they've had a few new signings this week, but before that, there was no activity at all. And that's nearly a sign to say, well, we're not too sure what way our finances here. We're going to have a look. They can't compete with Derry. They can't compete with Shamrock Rovers in the signings of the big players in Ireland. So they're going abroad now again, as they did before. And we don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for them, because as long as they don't go overkill, it could be a good thing for them. How do you see those signings as well?
Yeah, look, I think it was definitely a frustrating start for them, wasn't it? It was really quiet on that Western front, but I think the four lads coming in, seeing Louis Ainsley, Conor Mallon, Hayden Muller and Cameron Elliott all coming in as new recruits over the past week or so. Again, Stephen O'Donnell has said in interviews that there's 3 or 4 more signings on the way that he'd like to get over the line before the start of the season. So I think that might sort of put any cash crisis talk to bed, that they'd have gone out and, like I said, they might have used the foreign market rather than the internal market. I've been critical of that in the past, Roy. I was critical of that when Dundalk went down that route very heavily. Was it the 2020-21 season? Yeah. 1 or 2 years they went really heavily. I just don't think there's a DNA and a blueprint of that for success in the league, and you just have to look at the top 2 sides in the league at the moment, Shamrock Rovers and Derry.
Not a heavy influx, Nathan.
Not a heavy, no.
If there's a sprinkle of it, that's fine, because then that's giving you something a little bit different. But as we seen with that season, it was an overload.
it's trying to get lads in for the right reasons too, isn't it? It's not just seeing this league as a stepping stone, or you're just coming in on 6-month loans and things like that, which are just serve no purpose whatsoever, right? Again, look, we've seen with these 4 new signings, Robbie Benson has come in on a New Year deal. We talked last week, Pat Hoban, Nathan Shepherd, Andy Boyle, Darren Lee, Alfie Lewis, Ryan O'Kane, things like this. These lads are all on contracts to 2024, so that's not going to be an issue. They're going to be here for at least another year. But I always am really, really critical and really skeptical of going too heavy into the foreign market. We're seeing that there's a lot of, there's even ourselves now at St. Pat's, we got an Estonian player in the Estonian market this year as well. I don't know if someone's just playing Football Manager with Flora Talent flat out, but it seems to be really getting drilled into heavily. But yeah, it's a market that would always be that if you go into too much, it would just, I wouldn't be overly keen about it.
No. So you're overlooking on the sale of the club. Do you feel that this is something, just because of the evidence or the articles and the rumours, that again, no fire without no fire without smoke, because, or no smoke without the fire.
One of them
ones. Don't quote me on that one. But it seems likely that that's the case.
I think the best way to probably just sum it up right, and it's talking again, going back to this James Roger column that he penned, and the last line I thought was really good. It was simply watch this space regardless of any recent denials. So someone there in James, as we said, very reliable, knows the club really well. There seems to be no smoke without fire, no fire without smoke, whatever we want to say with this flip-flop in our mouths.
If they don't get that investment though, Nathan, that's where you could see a bit of trouble, because if it's a case that other teams are getting investment around the league, and you look at even the likes of Drogheda who are looking for investors, you could see that the club sort of slip away, because I think they reckon that they made a loss over last year, and the previous years, obviously when there was European and stuff like that, they had made $1 million here and a couple of 100,000 there. They can't keep going along the lines of, and I think they sold. Did they sell something? Or the club, the owners of the Peak Six, didn't they wipe off a loan or debt that they had there, something like 1.6 million or something like that? So they would have been in big debt. So they can't go down this route of signing heavy on players or anything like that. So you could see Dundalk drift away if they don't get the investment, because the league is starting to rise in the way that it's doing its business professionally, longer term contracts. So it could be very easy for Dundalk to just slip away and maybe be a Cork C.
Like we said, look, there's a couple of lads there on contracts in 2024, but while I'm sure we will pen down official predictions for both divisions in the next couple of weeks, I think we will see Shamrock Rovers and Derry City really drift around the top two, just with the investment that he had. Like, you look at the Dundalks and the Pats that would have been around them last year, they seem to have taken a bit of a backward step in terms of recruitment, and that all comes down to the cash injections that are being put into these clubs. So yeah, it definitely is, when you have two sides so heavily invested at the top of the table. That's always the worry, isn't it, that it's going to become a two-horse race for the next 10 years or so.
And absolutely, when you look at Oriel Park, I mean, there's been people who have come in, obviously Galway, they're locals, Derry local, Shamrock Rovers obviously have done it in a different type of way. Unless there's a local around there, who's going to come in and buy Oriel Park again after looking at Peak Six? Because Oriel Park is, let's just face it, it's not up to standards. They don't own it. There's the all-weather pit. It need a whole new stadium. So there's a big job there ahead.
Massive, absolutely massive. And like, look, we'll get into the Brandywell in a couple of minutes, but that only got a facelift not too long ago. But Oriel Park needs to be complete. It's one of the worst grounds across the country.
Do they need to move over altogether, Nathan, do you think?
I don't think so. I think the location of it, even within Dundalk, isn't too bad, but it is. And that's the issue, though, isn't it? When you don't own the ground, you're sort of going off as an anchor tenant. You're just going off the whims of the actual owner. I know just the family that owns Oriel Park have been long-time owners. There never seems to be a shift in that. As you mentioned, Peak Six really looked into that it got that bad. Peak Six were even looking into going into Aviva Stadium, which was absolutely mental news to cover at the time. So no, I think it's a nice plot that you have at the moment, but yeah,
can
there's
they
a lot of elements.
Can they build and can they add to it? Can they do as they wish with it? Have they? How long is the lease? Like if they had something like Tala Stadium where they worked with the councils and had it as a multifunctional stadium, maybe that would work better than being stuck in the dark ages.
Yeah, it might be, and that's again just a tip on the Brandywell one for when we get into it in a minute. It's a question that got brought up with the Brandywell now. With this, there's a bit of pushback on certain things from the council, and people are saying, "Oh, can we not just move out? We have the money there now with Philip O'Doherty. Can we not move out and get a new building ourselves?" But while we're very quick to judge, I think there's a lot to be said for the route that they go down with the council grounds. You see that with Shamrock Rovers, and we'll see that with Derry City in the Brandywell, two of the better stadiums across both divisions, where Oriel Park are trying to jump through hoops of actually buying the ground, buying the land, and then the investment that'll have to go into Oriel, mate, it'd be eye-watering amounts of money. They're closed in on the left-hand side of the main road, but again, I know there's land around it, but it might not be on. I can't say I'm too sure about the ownership of the land around Oriel Park in terms of expansion and, upgrading the stands and things like that.
Yeah. They have a couple of years ahead of them now that are going to be big, I think, for the club, and they're going to have to get their heads down and work really hard if they want to join the other teams who financially obviously are that little bit more successful or lucky, I suppose.
And you know what? Like when StatSport and the new ownership came in, credit to them. They've actually haven't done a bad job since they went into Dundalk.
Yeah, agreed.
The business acumen away from football speaks for itself. Where with StatSport, it's blown up massively. So as businessmen, they obviously they know what they're doing, but it's it's crazy things. But I thought we would have been looking at Dundalk being a consistent side, being pushing in that whole position right behind Rovers and Derry. So I was surprised to hear these rumours coming out that maybe all isn't rosy in the garden up at Oriel Park.